Try this for a second before watching any further. Picture an ordinary flush toilet, the kind sitting in your bathroom right now, and explain out loud how it works. Set aside which button you press and the fact that water goes down and comes back, and focus only on the actual mechanism. Where does the water that refills the bowl come from? Why does the water level rise and fall in a specific pattern instead of draining the moment you flush? What is happening inside that tank between the second you press the handle and the second the bowl goes quiet again? If you got stuck somewhere in the middle of that explanation, you had no idea you were going to get stuck until you actually tried. A minute ago, if someone had asked whether you understood how a toilet works, you would have said yes without hesitation. The gap between how well you think you understand something and how well you can explain it is called the illusion of explanatory depth. And it turns out to be one of the most consistent features of human thought that almost nobody notices until someone forces them to confront it. The phenomenon was first documented in 2002 by two researchers at Yale, Leonid Rosenblit and Frank Keel, in a paper called The Misunderstood Limits of Folk Science. They gave participants a list of devices, things like zippers, sewing machines, piano keys, speedometers, helicopters, and asked them to rate their own understanding of how each one worked on a scale of 1 to 7. People rated themselves high. Zippers and toilets in particular tend to get confident ratings because everyone uses them daily, and daily use feels a lot like knowledge. Participants were asked to write a step-by-step explanation of how the object functioned. After writing that explanation, they were asked to rate their own understanding again. The ratings dropped sharply and universally. People who had rated their understanding of a zipper at a 6 found themselves unable to explain why the 2 rows of teeth locked together instead of sliding past each other, and their second rating came in well below their first. This happened again and again, across every object on the list, across almost every participant. The act of trying to explain something revealed how much of what they thought they knew had never actually been there. Not every kind of recall triggers the same drop. Ask someone to recall a fact, the capital of a country, the name of a childhood friend, and there is no illusion involved. You either know it or you don't, and trying to state it does not change your assessment of whether you knew it. The same holds when someone retells a story they have heard or performs a skill they have practiced, tying a shoelace, riding a bike, and their confidence tends to match their performance. The illusion is specific to a particular kind of knowledge, the kind that explains how a system produces an outcome through a chain of physical causes involving mechanisms and processes rather than facts or stories. That is the category where the mind believes it holds more detail than it does. A researcher named Rebecca Lawson pushed this further a few years later, using a bicycle instead of a toilet. Bicycles seemed like a good test case, because unlike a zipper or a speedometer, most adults operate one. Lawson asked university students, many of whom rode bikes regularly, to draw a bicycle frame and chain from memory. A large share of the drawings were broken. Chains connected to the wrong wheel, frames that could not support a rider, and pedals that would not turn anything. And when the same participants were shown a set of correct and incorrect bicycle diagrams and asked to pick out which one was sound, a striking number still failed to identify the working version. People who had ridden a bicycle almost every day of their adult lives could not reconstruct the thing they had been using for years. This exposes something a little uncomfortable about human confidence, because university students who ride bikes daily are not a low information group by any reasonable standard. The illusion tracks whether your daily interaction with a thing ever actually required you to model its internal mechanism, no matter your intelligence or how much time you have spent using the object. Riding a bike requires balance and momentum. It has never required you to know why the chain does not fall off the sprocket. Your body learned the parts it needed for the task in front of it and assumed the rest was filled in somewhere. People who know very little consistently mistake that gap for knowledge, right up until the moment they are asked to produce it. So why would a mind built by hundreds of thousands of years of survival pressure end up with a blind spot this specific? One explanation, developed by cognitive scientists Stephen Sloman and Philip Fernbach and laid out in their book The Knowledge Illusion, is that human understanding was never designed to live inside one skull. Almost everything you rely on was built and is maintained by other people, and you have never needed to hold the full mechanism in your head because someone else in your surrounding network already does. A brain that tried to model every system it interacts with would run out of room, so instead it stores a rough sketch, borrows confidence from the fact that the knowledge exists somewhere accessible, which is far more efficient. The brain treats access to knowledge and possession of knowledge as nearly the same feeling, without separating what it holds from what is available through other people. Which raises a question that does not have a clean answer. Is this a defect in human cognition, a gap that better education should be closing? Or is it closer to a load-bearing feature of the entire human civilization, the exact thing that allows 8 billion people to run systems none of them individually understands, using electricity none of them could generate from scratch, on devices none of them could build alone? Every person watching this video is currently relying on a supply chain, a legal system, a communications network, and a body of medical knowledge that no single human being on Earth holds in full. If everyone insisted on fully understanding a system before trusting it, very little of modern life would function at all. It is hard to say whether that makes the illusion something worth correcting in yourself, or something you are quietly grateful exists in everyone around you. The stakes of this get higher once you move it out of the world of toilets and zippers. In 2013, Philip Fernbach ran a study on political policy positions, things like unilateral sanctions, a flat tax, and cap-and-trade systems for carbon emissions. Participants first rated how strongly they supported or opposed a policy, and rated how well they understood it. Then they were split into two groups. One group was asked to give the reasons behind their position, the arguments and values that justified their stance. The other group was asked to explain how the policy would work, what would happen first, what would happen as a result, and what the effects would be. The group asked for reasons walked away just as confident as before, while the group asked to explain the mechanism became less extreme in their position and rated their own understanding lower than they had at the start. Explaining how something functions tests whether you understand it in a way that stating your reasons for believing it never does, and for most people holding a strong opinion on a policy they have never once had to walk through, that test is one they had never taken until a researcher handed it to them in a lab. Which puts us back where this started, standing in front of a toilet tank you use every day, or a bicycle you have ridden for years, or a policy position you would defend without hesitation. The feeling of understanding arrives instantly and costs nothing. Actual understanding has to be built, and the only reliable way to find out which one you are holding is to try to explain the thing out loud without stopping to check whether you know the ending before you have earned it. Most of the time, you find out somewhere in the middle that you did not.